With the Lanterns still lost in an unknown universe, will they ever get home? Welcome to the complete story series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues, and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read it dramatically back to you. This is the Edge of Oblivion, and it picks up where the Lost Lanterns left off. Sadly, a few things will get ignored from the previous story, but overall the story does move forward with them potentially finding a way home. Mogo, the living planet. All of the Green Lanterns have gathered on Mogo to figure out what to do with their dying universe. And down on the surface, everyone tries to calm Badge down because he's rather upset. All except Guy, who's having a hard time taking a swearing squirrel seriously. It's been 6 months of exploring ever since their last adventure, and the Lanterns are not any closer to escaping this dying universe or finding any more of their missing members. But Gaff has an idea. If there are any Lost Lanterns out there, they'll have Mogo shine his brightest so that all of the Lost Lanterns can see it. And it does work. Far out in space, the light can be seen by the missing lanterns, but it also attracts something else, a giant planet, and it's flying straight for Mogo. The Lanterns put up their shields to try and slow it down. They end up stopping it, but soon after, the shield begins to crack and a giant man comes crashing through. Everyone tries to fight against him, but he grabs and slams Kilowog down on the ground. Before he's able to finish off Kilowog though, a voice tells him to stop, and a woman tells Dimsas to stop. Dimsas looks back and says, Osras, but Osras tells him these people are not their enemies. She turns to the Lanterns and tells them that she is sorry. Her brother Dimsas and herself are the planet's guardians, and Dimsas was just trying to protect the survivors of it. She goes on to state that since they are also powerful beings, they should help each other out if they're going to survive the fall of the universe. After a little bit of debating amongst the Green Lanterns, they decide that they might as well try and work with them. The Lanterns follow the brother and sister back to their planet, and they introduce the Lanterns as the new champions. And John gives a speech about helping everyone. During his speech, down in the crowds, a hooded Marniel sees the Lanterns as a possible threat, so they're gonna have to destroy them. A little time passes, and one of the Lanterns, Muck, begins to travel through the city. When he hears someone scream, he goes to check on it, and someone grabs him by the neck, cutting off his hand. And without his ring, he falls and begins to shrivel up. The Lanterns discover the remains of Muck, and Guy begins to yell at Kilowog, telling him that this was his idea to come here. Now look what's happened, and Kilowog tells everyone that he'll figure out what's going on. He goes to see Osras and Dimsas, and Kilowog tells him that something ate their friend, and he wants to know what happened. Osras tells him that she is sorry that this happened, and she tells Kilowog and the other Lanterns that it was the doing of Marniel. Osras goes on to tell them about Marniel. She is an old being that lives under the city, and she's been there before the two Guardians appeared. Those who follow her are extremely loyal, and she wants to destroy everything in her path. But before she can continue, there's a loud sound that everyone can hear, and soon, the planet begins to fly again. Dimsas tells everyone that the planet is fleeing, and when John Stewart asks what is it fleeing from, everyone looks toward the sky to see a tear in space that is sucking everything into it. Below the city though, Marniel tells Dalkin that now is the time to strike. And her followers begin to fly in towards the thrusters of the planet, dropping bombs on them. Dimsas tells everyone that the engines have been destroyed, and the Lanterns quickly begin to patch the hole up in space for now, and while the others go down to try to repair the damages. But until they can get the right parts, the Lanterns will just have to use their rings to fill in for the missing parts. Back on the surface though, Marniel says her goodbye to one of her followers as they fly off towards the Lanterns, who are holding up a blockade. It's another suicide bomber. With the blockade being destroyed, Dimsas grabs Guy, Badge, and Orissa before they can get sucked into the hole in the universe. But he loses his grip on Badge and Orissa, and the two of them get pulled into the rip in the universe. Back on the planet, John manages to get the engines up and running, and everyone begins to retreat to treat the wounded. Kilowog tells Guy they're gone. There was nothing that he could do. So Guy turns and punches Kilowog. Everyone begins to return to the planet, and Kilowog and Guy begin to fight. And Kilowog asks Guy if he thinks he can get away with hitting a commanding officer. But Guy's response is, because of Kilowog's commands, two of their friends are dead. John stops the two of them from continuing their fight, and 2-6 asks what death. And Guy tells her to go ask the commanding officers about it, and leaves. Guy flies above the city and he looks down, and Osras comes to tell him not to feel bad about what happened. His friends died protecting this world, but Guy tells her that it's not his world. Hell, this isn't even his universe. Osras tells Guy that this planet needs him. He needs to strike it where the real evil is, and that's Marniel. That way, everyone can be safe and this won't happen again. Osras and the Lanterns decide to gather and discuss Mogo and Perduran, because it seems the planets have begun talking amongst each other. But from the sounds of it, they aren't really friends. And Guy says, great, Mogo finally meets another sentient planet and it turns out to be an ass. For when everyone is gathered, Perdian says the universe will be destroyed in 4 days, and that's the message that he was relaying through Mogo. Oshras tells everyone that they need to start scanning the universe to find whatever they can so that they can possibly leak into the next universe. But because of the recent attacks, they can't send everyone out to look for that. So Oshras suggests that John and Salak stay behind with a small group to defend the planet. So Salak tells everyone else that they need to search out in space for an escape, and if they don't find anything, they need to return here in 3 days. Guy decides to stay back while the others go search. He wants to stop the problems with the attacks himself. But as he leaves, Kilowog decides to follow him because he still feels partly to blame for the loss of Badge and Orisa. So Kilowog begins to drill into the planet itself, and soon everyone finds themselves face to face with Marniel's followers. They weren't that far beneath the surface, and now they're all pointing guns. Everyone begins to defend themselves, and Guy grabs everyone, locking them up in a green orb, preventing them from attacking. But soon, Marniel herself steps out and tells Guy to release her people. Guy tells her this isn't how it works. Marniel says that he doesn't know who he's dealing with. She survived everything, and being the last of her people, she holds the power of everyone before her. She releases all of the spirits of her people, and while the lanterns attempt to attack them, they notice that the rings have no effect on the spirits. She then calls back the spirits, and the lanterns begin to fall. So Marniel walks over to Guy and takes off his ring. Guy tells her she'll never be worthy to wear that ring, and she tells him he has no idea, because very shortly, she is outfitted with a Green Lantern suit. Back above, John notices the Guy and the others are not answering the rings, and soon he hears a voice telling him they can't speak right now. Osras tells them that that's Marniel, and John asks if they are safe, so Marniel tells him, yes, they are, but if they attack my people again, they will die. Kilowog shouts out not to listen to her. Come and get her, poozers! But then Marniel releases her spirits at Kilowog, destroying the prison that they were in. 2-6 tells her to stop, but is soon blasted herself, and Zaril goes to check on 2-6 while Kilowog goes back to confronting Marniel. Marniel begins to tell them that she should have destroyed them now that they are powerless. But Zaril says no, they are not powerless, and then she changes her emotion to match Marniel. Marniel realizes what is happening to Zaril, and she tells her to tell everyone. Tell everyone what Marniel's fighting for. Zaril falls to her knees, telling everyone that they were wrong. They were so very wrong. She explains what she sees, that she sees Marniel ruling over her people, but soon the world began to wither, and that's when Osras and Dismas appeared. When they appeared, they convinced Marniel's people that she was the reason why the planet began to wither, and they had her exiled. Zaril begins to revert back to herself, and Marniel asks everyone if they would really sacrifice this world, and Kilowog tells her that they will do what they have to do to stop Osras and Dimsas. Marniel returns their rings to them, and as soon as Guy gets his ring back, he begins to fly out. Marniel put a device on Guy to not allow him to talk because he was under Osras's influence. But as soon as he breaks free, he tries to warn John that they are coming. Everyone grabs Guy and they slam him back down and they take his ring. And Guy asks, what are they doing? They're supposed to be stopping Marniel. But Marniel tells everyone that Osras has influenced his mind, and now she will most likely be influencing the rest of the Lanterns to team up with her. They're going to have to go through their friends to save this planet. Soon, Zrill breaks Guy from Osras's influence, and she tells everyone that Guy will be fine. Marniel asks if he's really back to normal, and Guy tells her, give him back his ring. It's where he keeps his pants. And Zrill says, yeah, she's sure. Marniel tells everyone that that's good, and they will now need to go through their friends, and Guy tells them, maybe not, and he flies off. Back in the city above, Guy heads over alone to John and the rest of the Lanterns. Because of his warning, they're ready for the attack on Osras and Dimsas. He tells everyone to hang on. He actually escaped from Marniel, but the others, they're still hell-bent on destroying those guys. So he's gonna go warn Osras and Dimsas himself. He heads over to the Citadel to speak to Osras, and she welcomes him in, and Guy tells her that he knows what they are. They are the World Eaters, the Blackest Knights! He charges up his ring and he releases a massive explosion, destroying the Citadel. John sees the explosion, and then down below, Kilowog and 2-6 jump into battle to stop John and the others. But before anyone can get to the Citadel, Guy comes bursting through the roof with Osras and Dimsas closely following behind. John manages to capture Kilowog and the others, but Salak tells him that they have something incoming. And as it gets closer, they can see that it's the other Lanterns from the other side of the universe. John tells her it's good to see her and asks if they can help with these guys, pointing at the other Lanterns that are now working with Marniel and her troops. But they stop and ask, why don't they just stop and talk about what's going on? Outside in space though, Osras and Dimsas begin beating on Guy, asking what was the point of all of that, and Guy tells them to really piss them off. Also to have them take it out on him before they notice. Soon Guy gets word from Zrill that she's ready, and everyone looks back to see Mogo charging. With that, a giant blast fires from the planet and into Osras and Dimsas. As the light begins to fade, everyone begins to see a giant tail, and everyone stops fighting to see Osras and Dimsas are what they really are, the World Eaters. John looks in shock, and Guy tells him, I know, right? And I wanted to beg for them. All of the Lancers begin to change their focus on the monsters Osras and Dimsas, but they still aren't enough, and slowly they begin to fall. But it was one of the lanterns that died that gave everyone a fighting chance. As she died, her ring flew off and searched for a replacement, but it should only be doing that if it has a connection to their home universe. And it goes through the rift, the hole in the universe that they were trying to blockade. John and Simon Baz watch the ring leave, and Simon says that it must be detecting their universe. So after John and Simon talk about it, they decide that Simon's gonna follow the ring. As more and more lanterns fall, Simon continues to follow the ring until he reaches the tear in space. The same tear that they lost Arissa and Badge to. Simon calls back and he tells them that the rings are picking up their universe through this tear in the universe. And there's only one way to find out if it's accurate. So Simon flies into the tear and he tells everyone that the force in here is so intense, but he could see it! And then he gets cut off. Back below, Guy tells everyone that Simon is gone, but there might be a chance through that tear. Seeing as they don't have many other options because the entire universe is going to end and they're fighting world eaters, they decide that they have to go. But if they do go through, they won't be able to protect the last city, and the world eaters will take it. So Kilowog suggests that they will just have to move the city through the rift. The Lanterns split up their forces, and Kilowog leads one half to distract Osras and Dimsas, while John and the others begin to lift the city. After moving the city over Mogo, everyone returns to inform Marniel that their city is safe. John then goes on to state that half of the lanterns will stay here to provide cover and allow safe passage while the universe collapses. But Marniel says that they don't have to sacrifice themselves. She goes on to state that their planet, Puridan, will sacrifice herself. All they need to do is bring the Universe Eaters back to the planet's surface and she'll be able to hold them while everyone escapes through the rift. Then, the universe will end with their planet and the World Eaters there. John calls out to Kilowog with the new planet, and Kilowog tells everyone, with him! This is it! Everyone needs to use everything. Everyone needs to give up their strength. They need to hit these two as hard as they can and bring the Universe Eaters down. So everyone begins using their power and beating them down further and further until Osras and Dimsas fall down to the planet's surface. With everyone using up their willpower and beating them down further and further, they are beaten down into a hole, and then Puridan begins to collapse around them, holding them in place. Seeing Osras and Dimsas trapped, the Lanterns rush over to Mogo with the city with him, and they begin to fly through the tear. Guy thinks about how they just fought nightmares. They just fought against the Blackest Knights. And in the end, they stood at the edge of Oblivion. With the Green Lantern Corps, they won't have any fear, and they all fly through the rift, ending this story. And that is where the Green Lantern Corps storyline ended just before DC Rebirth. We're gonna go back and tell you what happened to Hal right before DC Rebirth, and then we're gonna show you the rebirth for the Corps. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know down below what you thought about it. Personally, as much as I did enjoy this storyline, I didn't like how some things were lacking, and I felt like the storyline was a little bit all over the place. But that might have just been my opinion. It's still Green Lanterns, and I love the Green Lanterns. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram at Comicstorian, and I'll see you next time right here.